Capital Views is sponsored by Northrim Bank, Alaska Oil and Gas Association, ConocoPhillips, and Linden.
Hi, I'm Tim Bradner with Alaska Legislative Digest, and welcome to Capitol Views. And welcome today to Julie Decker, the president of the Alaska Seafood Processors Association. Julie, seafood is a big industry for Alaska and very important. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what PSPA does.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, Tim. It's nice to be here. Pacific Seafood Processors Association, or PSPA, is a trade association for some of the major seafood processing companies in Alaska. They have land-based facilities from Ketchikan to Unalaska, St. Paul, and all the places in between. They represent a significant amount of the seafood that's landed in the state of Alaska. The overall industry itself, the total industry contributes about $6 billion to Alaska's economy every year.
And Julie, uh, this is a year that's pretty difficult for the industry. Maybe you could describe some of the problems you're facing.
Sure. Um, there are some challenges that started in 2022 and really became noticeable in 2023, and we saw some price drops as well as processors shifting, their businesses in the sense of some sales of seafood processing facilities. Some folks looking at their kind of core businesses and what is their core strengths and sort of doubling down on those, which could mean reorganizing their business plans. And so in 2024, there was a real effort by many to address some of the challenges, which were really kind of coming out of COVID. There was an adjustment to global seafood demand, a drop in global seafood demand, as well as an increase in inflation and prices and kind of pushing back by customers on those things. And so that coupled with tremendous increases in costs that everybody's been experiencing over the last couple of years, and drop in revenues, it really created this sort of crisis, and sort of a perfect storm, so to speak. And the war that through Russia's invasion of Ukraine, also sort of made everything worse as far as price depression. So there was just about 12 different factors that all came together in 2023. And in 2024, people really started pulling together to try to make some change to improve the situation.
There's been some transition in the seafood industry, new players emerging, plants changing ownership. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what some of the major trends have been. And I think the Kodiak plant was sold.
That's correct. Just, I believe, in December, that was previously owned by Trident, and Pacific Seafood has purchased it. Pacific Seafood has several smaller facilities in Alaska that they've had for a number of years. They're based in Oregon, and but the new facility to them in Trident, or excuse me, in Kodiak, will be quite a increase in their footprint in the state of Alaska. So an expansion for Pacific Seafood into Alaska. Trident did sell about 4 facilities, and there were, I believe, 3 different companies that purchased those facilities: EC Phillips, Silver Bay Seafoods, and then Pacific Seafood, as we were talking about. And so what we're seeing is really this shift in, like I said, companies looking at their core business plans and sort of doubling down on what their core strengths are. In some cases, that meant selling plants. In some cases, that meant purchasing plants. And so we're seeing a whole variety of change within the industry itself to adjust to sort of a new era of competition is really what we're calling it.
Julie, maybe you could speak to the specific fisheries themselves. Like, what's the how do these things affect the upcoming salmon season and in the whitefish, the groundfish?
The pollock A season is just winding down right now. Processors are open, fishermen are fishing, and I think a question is about prices in 2025 and how that's going to evolve. Um, I think 2025 is going to be an interesting year because this is the first year where there's no Russian seafood in the U.S. market, and that's due to the U.S. sanction on Russian seafood starting last May. So we really that seafood that was shipped into the United States in 2024 will be gone, and so we're going to see, does that have an increase in prices in the domestic market? However, we also have some unknowns given trade and tariffs in the U.S. and what's happening there. There's a lot of activity and a lot of unknown of how that's going to affect our industry. So those are things to keep an eye on. We expect a somewhat better predicted biomass or return of salmon this year. And so people are, I think, are looking forward to that. And there has been some stabilization as far as USDA purchases of both salmon and pollock, which are our two largest fisheries in Alaska by both value and volume. And so that has stabilized inventories to some degree. So, I think 2025 is a little bit more stable year, but yet there's still some unknowns happening.
Well, that's how it looks like it's going to be a fairly decent salmon season, probably about like last year. Do you think?
It's expected for runs to be in general terms, somewhat better than last year. Now, it's such a big state, and there's so many different runs that could be different in your region, um, but but the expectations are somewhat better this year for salmon returns.
But that's good. And the same with halibut. Do you think?
I don't know what the halibut predictions are for this year.
Well, Julie Decker, thank you for joining us, and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you for having me, Tim.